The morning dew still clung to the white roses, each droplet a tiny prism catching the first slant of dawn. Soleil Malone knelt among them, her pruning shears snipping with the precision of a surgeon, though her hands bore the dirt of a mourner. 2 weeks ago, her father Victor Malone had slipped beyond her reach at 68, leaving behind this garden, his pride, his sanctuary, his whispered promise of beauty in a world that too often forgot it. The roses trembled under her touch, their petals soft as the vows they'd been planted to honor. Her wedding day, 15 years past, now a memory trampled by divorce papers and Ethan Carver's fleeing shadow. The air was still, heavy with the scent of damp earth and fading blooms, when a sound cut through, a crunch, sharp and deliberate, like bones snapping underfoot, expensive heels on the gravel path. Soleil didn't need to look up to know who it was. Only one person would dare to tread Victor's sacred ground, in shoes that screamed money over reverence. The shears paused, hovering above a thorned stem, as Tara Hensley's silhouette loomed into view, her shadow slicing across the flower bed like a guillotine. "Still digging in the mud, huh?" Tara's voice dripped with fake sweetness, a syrup that coated the tongue but left a bitter aftertaste. She stood there, 35 and polished to a sheen, Louboutin heels sinking into the soil, black skirt tailored tight, blonde hair swept back like she'd just stepped off a magazine cover. Soleil's knees ached against the cold ground, her jeans patched with earth, but she kept her eyes on the roses. White petals, Victor had said, were for new beginnings. All she saw was the stain of endings. "What do you want, Tara?" Soleil's words were quiet, clipped, the rustle of leaves louder than her voice. She snipped a wilted bloom, letting it fall like a discarded promise. Tara stepped closer, her heels grinding gravel into dust. "Oh, just a friendly visit. The will reading's tomorrow, you know. Ethan and I thought we should check in." Her red lips curled, a predator smile. "Victor's estate. It's quite the prize, isn't it?" Soleil's fingers tightened around the shears, the metal cool and heavy against her palm. Ethan, her ex-husband, 36 now, who'd traded their vows for Tara's bed 3 years ago. The man Victor had once called son, until the betrayal cracked that bond like frost on a petal. "A prize you think you deserve?" Soleil asked, her gaze still fixed on the roses, though her pulse thudded in her ears. Tara laughed, a sound like glass shattering on stone. "Deserve's got nothing to do with it, honey. It's about what's owed." She tilted her head, studying Soleil like a vulture sizing up carrion. "You'll see soon enough." The shears glinted in the dawn light, a silent vow of their own. Soleil stayed kneeling, but her spine straightened. Whatever Tara wanted, it wouldn't bloom here. Not in Victor's garden, not while she still drew breath. Tara's shadow stretched long and dark across the flower bed, a stain on the white roses that Soleil had tended since Victor's hands could no longer hold the shears. The air thickened, humming with the weight of words unspoken, betrayals unburied. Tara shifted her weight, one heel sinking deeper into the soil, a deliberate trespass, and her crimson lips twisted into a smirk that promised ruin. Soleil rose slowly, wiping soil-covered hands on her faded apron, the pruning shears dangling at her side like an unsheathed blade. "Ode?" Soleil echoed, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Ethan walked out on me, on us, for you, and now you think Victor's estate belongs to you?" She faced Tara fully now, 32 years of grit meeting 35 years of gloss. Tara's perfume, sharp and floral, clashed with the garden's honest musk. "Ethan was like a son to Victor for 15 years, Tara said, her manicured hand waving dismissively, nails catching the light like talons. "Golf every Sunday, drinks at the club. Victor forgave him, you know, after your little mess." She paused, savoring the jab. "He couldn't stay mad at family." Soleil's grip on the shears tightened, the metal biting into her palm. "The same Ethan who cheated on his daughter with his secretary, that family?" Her words were a thorn, sharp and aimed true. Ethan's affair had unraveled her marriage. But Victor's forgiveness, those golf games until cancer stole him 2 weeks ago, still stung like salt in a wound. Ancient history, Tara snapped, her fake smile faltering for a heartbeat before snapping back into place. Victor knew what mattered, and tomorrow, when that will's read, Ethan and I will get our fair share. She stepped closer, her shadow swallowing the roses whole. This house, the company, it's ours as much as yours. This is my father's house, Soleil said, her voice rising like a wind through the trees. He built it brick by brick, planted every root, designed every corner. It's not about money, it's about legacy. The rage simmered now, a fire licking at her ribs, but she held it back, remembering Victor's words. A firm hand, Soleil, never a cruel one. Legacy? Tara snorted, a harsh, ugly sound. Wake up, sweetheart. Everything's about money. And your brother Caleb? He agrees with us. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hiss. He's been very cooperative. Caleb, 34, her older brother, the one who'd barely looked at her at Victor's funeral, consoling Ethan instead. The mention sent a chill down Soleil's spine, cold as the dew beneath her boots. "You've spoken to Caleb?" she asked, her tone flat, masking the storm inside. "Oh, honey, we've done more than speak." Tara's grin was all teeth, a shark circling blood. He knows what's at stake. The shears felt heavier now, a weight begging to be swung. Soleil took a breath, steadying herself. "Get off my property, Tara," she said quietly. Each were deliberate. "Before I forget my manners." Tara laughed again, breaking glass on stone, and turned to leave. At the garden gate, she paused. "Start packing, Soleil. Ethan and I will need a month to renovate once we move in." Her heels clicked down the path, a retreating drumbeat of war. Soleil looked down at the roses, their white petals now spotted with soil where her trembling hands had crushed them. Victor had promised new beginnings, but all she saw was red. The growl of Tara's car engine faded into the distance, swallowed by the garden's quiet exhale. Soleil stood alone among the roses, their white blooms silvered by the rising sun, though the air still carried the sting of Tara's perfume. Her hands shook, soil crumbling from her fingers as she dropped the pruning shears beside a thorned stem. The weight of Tara's words, Ethan, Caleb, the estate, pressed against her chest, a stone she couldn't shift. Victor's garden stretched around her, a patchwork of memory and loss. Every petal a piece of him she wasn't ready to surrender. A glint caught her eye, a corner of damp paper poking from beneath a rose bush, half hidden among the thorns. She knelt, breath catching as she brushed the soil aside. An envelope, its edges softened by dew, bore her name in Victor's unmistakable scrawl. Bold, steady, the hand of a man who'd shaped her world brick by brick until cancer claimed him 2 weeks ago. Soleil lifted it with trembling fingers, its weight more than paper and ink, as if it held his voice, his will, his fight. She pulled out her phone, the screen cold against her palm. "Lila, it's me," she said when her best friend answered, 33 and fierce as ever. "Tara just paid me a visit. She's exactly as bad as we thought. Can you come over? There's something about the will I need to talk about." "I'll be there in 20, Lila replied, her voice a firm tether. "Hold tight, Soleil. Victor was smarter than they know." The call ended, and Soleil turned the envelope over in her hands, its damp surface cool against her skin. Whatever Tara and Ethan planned, Victor had left her something. A seed buried among the thorns, waiting to bloom. The garden's quiet lingered in Soleil Malone's ears as she stepped into Victor's study, the air thick with the ghost of pipe tobacco and the must of old books. The room was a sanctuary of memory, leather chair worn smooth by his hands, oak desk scarred with years of his plans, untouched since he'd slipped away at 68, 2 weeks gone. She clutched the damp envelope, its weight a lifeline against Tara Hensley's venomous promise of renovations that would erase him. The roses outside had been her battlefield, but here, in this room, she felt Victor's presence, steady as the roots he'd planted. The door creaked open, and Lila Brooks swept in, 33 and sharp-eyed, her legal briefcase in one hand and a bottle of Cabernet in the other. "Figured we might need this," she said, setting the wine on the desk with a heavy thunk, her smile a flicker of light in the gathering dusk. Soleil sank into the leather chair, its cool embrace cradling her as she turned the envelope over, Victor's scrawl stark against the paper. Soleil. "You haven't opened it yet," Lila noted, pouring 2 generous glasses, the wine's red glow catching the lamplight. "I wanted to wait for you," Soleil replied, her voice soft but firm, fingers trembling as she broke the seal. Inside, a single sheet and a small key gleamed like a promise. She unfolded the paper, and Victor's words filled the silence, her voice trembling as she read aloud. "My dearest Soleil, if you're reading this, someone's made a move on the estate. Knowing human nature, I'm guessing it's Tara, all flash and no heart." Lila snorted into her glass, a sound half laugh, half growl, as Soleil continued. "The key opens the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside, you'll find everything to protect what's yours. Remember chess, Soleil. Sometimes you sacrifice a pawn to save the queen. Love, Dad." Her breath hitched, the word dad a wound still raw, but Lila was already moving, gesturing to the desk. "Go on," she urged, her tone a mix of warmth and steel. Soleil slid the key into the lock, the soft click echoing like a heartbeat in the quiet room. The drawer groaned open, revealing a thick manila envelope and a USB drive nestled among shadows. She tipped the contents onto the desk. Photos spilled out like fallen petals. Tara, meeting a shadowed figure in a parking lot. Ethan Carver entering a lawyer's office not Lila's. Bank statements with numbers that twisted her gut. Email printouts plotting theft. "He had them followed," Soleil whispered, picking up a photo of Tara handing an envelope to Victor's nurse, the timestamp 2 days before his death. Lila perched on the desk's edge, her grin sharp as a blade. "Better. He had them investigated. That USB's got video. Her trying to bribe the nurse for will details." Soleil's hands shook as she traced a bank transfer, the evidence of Tara's embezzlement from Victor's company, Malone Industries, stark in black ink. "He knew," she said, looking up at Lila, whose nod was slow, deliberate. "6 months ago, right after his diagnosis, he came to me. Said he saw this coming, Ethan's weakness, Tara's greed. He planned it all." The room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in with the weight of Victor's foresight. Soleil clutched the USB, its cold metal a tether to his voice. "There's more, isn't there?" she asked, and Lila's eyes darkened. "Before you look, the will reading tomorrow, he added a codicil 3 days before he died. Trust me, it changes everything." Soleil stared at the evidence spread before her, a garden of secrets Victor had cultivated, each piece a thorn to pierce Tara's schemes. Whatever trap he'd set, it was blooming now, and she was ready to tend it. Night draped Victor's house in a silver shroud, the moon casting long fingers across the garden where Soleil had faced Tara's venom hours before. She stood in the study, the evidence still scattered across the desk like a map of betrayal, when the door edged open. Caleb Carver slipped inside, 34 and looking like a man who'd fought a war and lost. His designer suit wrinkled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion, a leather portfolio clutched like a shield. Soleil tensed, the sting of his absence at Victor's funeral, consoling Ethan instead of her, still fresh. "You look terrible," she said, breaking the ice, her voice sharper than she'd meant. "Yeah, well, playing double agent isn't as fun as the movies," Caleb replied, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He hesitated at the threshold, then stepped forward. Can I come in? Soleil nodded to the chair across from her, the desk a barricade between them. He slumped into it, nodding at the photos. I see you found Dad's insurance policy. She leaned forward, the air between them thick with unspoken years. Why didn't you tell me what you were doing? The question cut deeper than she'd intended. 3 years of silence since her divorce flaring in her chest. Caleb sighed, opening the portfolio to reveal a check. $500,000, Tara's signature scrawled across it. Because I needed to make it right, he said, voice cracking. After the divorce, the way I sided with Ethan, I was an idiot, Soleil. You were my sister, and I failed you. He slid the check across the desk. Tara offered this to testify Dad wasn't sound when he made his final will. I took it straight to him instead. Soleil stared at the check, then at Caleb, her throat tightening. You didn't cash it, he shook his head. Dad wasn't angry, just disappointed. That's when he told me his plan. He pulled out a phone, pressing play. Tara's voice slithered into the room. Once the old man kicks it, we'll contest the will with your testimony about his mental state. Ethan's history with him seals it. We'll get everything. Soleil's fists clenched as Caleb fast-forwarded. Ethan now. Sell the house, liquidate it all. Soleil can crawl back to her little flower shop. She never deserved this. Turn it off, Soleil whispered, the words a punch to her gut. Caleb complied, then slid a document across the desk. There's more. Tara didn't just want the money, she wanted revenge on you, for making Ethan pay alimony, for catching them together. The paper showed bank transfers, embezzlement from Malone Industries, starting 6 months before Soleil found Ethan with Tara, his secretary of 3 years. She planned it all, Caleb said, voice low. Dad found out before his diagnosis was building a case. Then the cancer hit, and he switched to this. Soleil sank back, the chair creaking under her weight. She said you were helping them. Caleb's jaw tightened. I fed them just enough to keep them cocky, while Dad gathered this. He needed her to show her hand first. The grandfather clock chimed 9, each toll a heartbeat in the tense silence. I know I can't fix 3 years in one night, Caleb added, standing, but I'm here now, Soleil. Whatever happens tomorrow, I've got your back. He left the evidence on the desk, a bridge rebuilt with thorns, and Soleil watched him go, the pieces of Victor's puzzle clicking into place around her. Dawn broke bright and harsh over Victor's house, the study now a stage buzzing with Tara's hired camera crew, their lights glaring against the oak walls. Soleil stood by the window, the roses outside a silent witness to the chaos unfolding within. Tara swept in first, 35, and radiant in a black dress that screamed wealth. Ethan trailing behind, 36 and stiff in his tailored suit, eyes darting like a cornered animal. The crew adjusted lenses, capturing Tara's practiced poise as she bounced in her seat, a queen awaiting her crown. Soleil met Ethan's gaze briefly. He nodded, a ghost of their past flickering, then turned to Lila, who stood behind the desk, briefcase open, her grin a blade honed for battle. Places? Everyone, Lila muttered, straightening her jacket as she took her place. As Victor Malone's attorney, I'll read his last will and testament, along with any additional documents. Tara leaned forward, eyes gleaming. We're ready. Lila's voice cut through the hum. The estate, house, Malone Industries shares, divide 60% to Soleil Malone, 40% to Ethan Carver and Tara Hensley. Tara squealed, grabbing Ethan's arm. I knew it. Victor loved us too much to cut us out. However, Lila continued, her tone slicing Tara's triumph, there's a codicil, added 3 days before Victor's death at 68. Tara's smile faltered. What? Ethan shifted, nervous. A modification, Lila said, breaking the envelope's seal with a crack. Acceptance of any inheritance triggers a full investigation into financial irregularities preceding Victor's passing. The room froze, cameras whirring as Lila slid photos across the desk, Ethan with shady lawyers, Tara bribing the nurse. Or this USB video of attempted bribery, or these bank statements showing embezzlement from Malone Industries. Tara bolted up, chair toppling. "Turn those cameras off." Soleil stepped forward, voice calm. "No, they stay. You wanted this historic moment, remember?" Ethan grabbed a photo, color draining from his face. "Where'd you get these?" Caleb spoke from the corner, 34 and steady. "Dad's collection, including recordings of you planning to fake his mental decline." Tara whirled on him. "You were supposed to help us." Caleb shrugged. "I did. Just not you." Lila pressed play on a video, and Victor's voice boomed, thin but fierce from days before death. "If you're watching, you've shown your colors, just as I knew. Greed's a terrible teacher, but consequences are excellent students." Tara's mascara streaked as she backed toward the door. "This isn't over." Lila's reply was ice. "It is. Police are in the foyer. Embezzlement evidence awaits." As Tara and Ethan were led away, cameras rolling, Soleil felt Victor's hand on her shoulder. His trap sprung, his legacy blooming in the chaos they'd sown. The garden lay silvered under a late afternoon sun, its white roses aloof as news vans swarmed the lawn, their engines humming like vultures circling prey. Inside Victor's study, Soleil Malone stood amidst the aftermath of the will reading, the desk still littered with photos and printouts, evidence of Tara Hensley and Ethan Carver's unraveling. The air buzzed with the faint echo of Tara's screams, but a sharper sound cut through. Lila Brooks's phone, vibrating against the oak with fresh updates. She burst through the door, 33 and electric, waving the device like a torch. "It gets better," Lila said, her voice tight with triumph. "The DA found offshore accounts, dummy corporations. Tara wasn't just stealing from Malone Industries. She's been running a fraud network for years." Soleil's stomach twisted as she sank into Victor's leather chair, its worn surface a steady anchor. "And Ethan?" she asked, unsure why she still cared about the man who'd betrayed her at 36. Lila's grin sharpened. "Singing like a canary, turns out he's not so loyal facing prison." Before Soleil could process that, a sharp knock interrupted, and a police detective entered, his face grim under the study's lamplight. "Miss Malone," he said, laying a folder on the desk. "We found this in Tara's apartment. She's not who she claims." Documents spilled out, birth certificates, passports, all with different names but Tara's face, 35 and unyielding. "Her real name's Denise Morrow," he continued, "wanted in 3 states. The FBI's been after her for a decade." Soleil's breath caught as she scanned the papers. The name, Denise Morrow, a cold blade against her spine. "Margaret Phillips," she whispered, recalling a Florida case, murder masked as accident. The detective nodded. "Same woman. Served 5 years for fraud, got out, changed her identity. Your father was her biggest target yet." He handed her a USB drive, its metal cool in her palm. "This is footage of Victor confronting her. Thought you'd want it." Lila was already on her phone, dialing the DA, as Soleil plugged the drive into Victor's computer. The screen flickered, and Victor's face appeared, thin, fierce, days from death at 68. "I know what you're planning, Denise," he said, his voice steel. "I've read your journal, you're finished. Everything you've done ends here." Denise's white-faced reply spat venom. "You're dying, you can't stop me." Victor's laugh was cold. "I already have, you just don't know it yet." The video cut out, leaving Soleil staring at the blank screen. Victor's trap, a root system she'd only begun to unearth. The courtroom pulsed with the gavel's thunder, its wooden walls amplifying the sound as Soleil Malone took the witness stand, the air thick with anticipation. A month had passed since the will reading, and now Denise Morrow, once Tara Hensley, stood rigid in an orange jumpsuit, her polished facade stripped away at 35. Ethan Carver slouched beside her, 36 and broken, his tailored suit replaced by the same prison hue. Reporters scribbled in the gallery, their pens scratching like thorns on bark, while the jury leaned forward, eyes locked on Soleil. Lila Brooks squeezed her hand as they rose, 33 and steady, whispering, "The evidence speaks. You don't have to." But Soleil shook her head, Victor's last letter echoing in her mind. "Don't let this harden your heart." Silence wasn't strength today. It was fear. "State your name," the prosecutor began, his voice cutting through the hum. "Soleil Malone," she replied, her gaze steady on Denise, whose eyes burned with hatred, a flicker of desperation beneath. "Tell us about your relationship with the defendants," he pressed. Soleil took a breath, the words rising like sap. "Ethan was my husband for 15 years. Tara, Denise, was his secretary, the woman he left me for. They married 6 months after our divorce, then started visiting my father, Victor, building trust while he was sick." The prosecutor held up Denise's apartment documents, their ink a map of malice. "When did you learn of these plans against your safety?" Denise's lawyer leapt up. "Objection, circumstantial." The prosecutor countered. "They detail intent to harm her post-inheritance." The judge's "overruled" was a crack of lightning. "After their arrest," Soleil said, her voice unwavering, "Dad suspected it. That's why he gathered evidence, changed his will. He protected me, even after he was gone." Denise surged to her feet, handcuffs rattling. "He was a manipulative old man who couldn't let his precious daughter lose." The judge barked, "Sit down, Miss Morrow," but she whirled on Soleil. "You think you've won? I made Ethan leave you. I destroyed your marriage, and I'll destroy everything else." Chaos erupted. Bailiffs lunged, reporters gasped, as Denise's threats rang out, caught on record. Ethan stared at his hands, shoulders caving, finally seeing her venom unmasked. The judge called a recess, and Lila steered Soleil into a private room, the hallway a blur of clamoring press. "That outburst sealed it," Lila said, shutting the door. "Did you see Ethan's face? He's done." Caleb joined them, 34 and resolute, closing out the noise. "He saw her for real this time." Soleil sank into a chair, exhaustion hitting like a storm. "Dad knew she'd crack when cornered," she said, and Lila nodded, phone buzzing. "DA's adding charges, 25 to 30 years for her, 10 to 15 for him with cooperation." Outside, the gavel's echo faded, but Victor's roses bloomed in Soleil's mind, their truth cutting through Denise's lies like shears through rot. The greenhouse glowed warm under a setting sun, its glass panes fogged with the breath of thriving orchids as Soleil Malone pushed open the door. The air wrapped her in a humid embrace, thick with the scent of flowers Victor had tended until his hands failed him at 68. 2 months since the courtroom, the chaos of Denise and Ethan's sentencing had settled, and Caleb had called her here with a surprise. The FBI finished processing the study, he'd said, handing her a small box from Victor's desk. Inside, a key and a note. "For when justice blooms, check the greenhouse." Now, she stood alone, the key cool in her palm, the space a sanctuary of memory she'd avoided since his death. In the center, Victor's workbench held a large envelope, her name in his bold scrawl. She opened it, a deed slipping free with another letter. "My dearest Soleil," she read, her voice soft in the stillness. "By now, justice has bloomed, and the truth's come to light. But I grew more than flowers here. I grew hope for you to find your strength. This deed's for the lot next to your old flower shop, bought after I faced Denise. Malone Gardens shouldn't stay in one patch. Your gift for beauty deserves to grow. Some flowers bloom best after frost, Soleil. You've weathered your winter. Now bloom again. Love, Dad. Tears pricked her eyes as she clutched the deed, Victor's final gift rooting her future.